This week I've been driving this 2020 Mini Cooper John Cooper Works GP. Fun little car and quite a hot hatch. Let's walk you around this thing, show you what it's all about, and take it on the road, give you an idea of what it's like to drive. So a few specs. 301 horsepower, even though it says 302 all over the car. It has an 8-speed automatic transmission, an ASIN in here, interestingly enough, but it's tuned to kind of feel like a dual clutch. No manual options available. You do get a limited slip mechanical front differential, which is fantastic. Lots of special GP body cladding and aero bits and red accents. No matter what I say in this review about this car, just know this. I think this car is super, super cool. It's cool to walk up to and look at. It's cool to drive. It makes you feel just like you're in something special. Look at the spoiler. What a thing. It even has this little rubber flap on the top. You get a sport exhaust system. I think it has a valve when you hit the GP mode. It kind of opens up and gets a little bit throatier. No pops and bangs from it, but it's a pretty nice sounding system from the outside. And you get these carbon fiber reinforced plastic panels. This material is recycled from extra carbon fiber bits left over from the BMW i3 and i8, which is kind of neat. Forged alloy wheels. You get these nice Sport Bucket GP seats with a crumb collector. It's all manual, of course, to save weight. And look at this gauge cluster. It's almost like one of those racing gauge clusters. It's all digital and even easy to see in direct sunlight. Otherwise, though, that's about it. There's not a whole lot going on in this Mini as far as creature comforts and luxuries. You don't even get rear seats. This has a rear seat delete to save weight. The pro of that, though, is that you get a little bit extra cargo space. There is this massive brace in the back, though I think it's mostly just to keep luggage from flying into the front when you hit the brakes really hard. No spare tire, just a inflation kit. There's not a lot of weight over this rear end. Let's look under the hood. 2-liter turbocharged engine. Like I said earlier, 301 horsepower. I believe 332 pound-feet of torque. It is a torque monster. It comes on boost super hard. Mated with this 8-speed, it's a really potent powertrain. Lots of new cooling bits. There's a different sump. We're going to be taking this out on the track later this week and really put it through its paces. I think that's honestly where this JCW GP will be at home. But until then, let's show you what it's like to drive on the street. Like I said a minute ago, not a lot of creature comforts in here. These seats are comfortable though. You do have this adjustable armrest. And you get these very cool metal paddle shifters that are very satisfying. A little bit of a reverse camera there. And, ooh, look at this. A manual, mechanical handbrake. This thing does awesome handbrake turns, by the way. Probably not going to do one in this video, but just know that it's very strong and will lock up the wheels at will. So as you can see from just kind of driving over that little gravel bit, this GP is pretty stiffly sprung, but it's not so stiff as to be unlivable. And that is one thing I like about this car, is it's just hardcore enough to be exciting, but not too hardcore that you don't really want to drive it for a long time or a long distance. 301 horsepower goes a long way in a 2,800 pound car. And I don't know if you noticed back there, I was all over the road. This thing torque steers like a Mazda Speed 3. I haven't driven a car that torque steers in years, and it's kind of nice to get back into something that gives you a little bit of that active front-wheel drive, overpowered driving experience. The limited slip diff in this hooks up like crazy, gives you a ton of traction, but man, is it all over the road. This is going to be really interesting on track when we get it out to Waterford Hills this week. I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit nervous because this thing is a handful. It really comes on strong. It's pretty simple to set up. There's no really complicated drive modes or custom settings. If you hit the traction control button, that'll put you into GP mode. So it'll give you a little bit more aggressive throttle response, a little bit less intervention from the systems. And there is also a sport transmission setting. It does have launch control. Mini says this will do 60 miles an hour in 5 seconds, which, guys, for front-wheel drive, that's fast. Cold tires, cold morning. But this thing hooks up. Very little wheel hop. It's just a proper front-wheel drive hot hatch. I'm not crazy about the noise it makes. Get into those higher RPMs and it just feels a little bit artificial and piped in, and I think some of it is, and you can hear a little bit of the exhaust. The exhaust does sound quite good from the outside, but again, it's just doing that weird mini BMW 4-cylinder noise that I think is just a little bit fake sounding. Let's talk about this car's steering. So this is kind of an interesting point of contention with this car. I'm just going to call this thing uncomfortably numb. There is virtually no steering feel, and I'd like more directness. If you're not going to get steering feel, at least you can get a direct, accurate steering rack. But there's a little bit of a delay, and I don't really know where it's going to go. And you couple that with the massive amounts of torque steer, and it's anyone's guess as to which direction this car is going to turn you. You can go into a corner on this car, the same corner, and you'll never experience it the same way. It's always doing something different. It's always changing it up, being a little bit unpredictable. It's just so quick, but oh man, it's a little bit Larry. Oh man, it is fun though, and it keeps you engaged and it keeps you active. But I wish this thing had a proper steering rack in it that just had more feel and directness, and it is kind of anything but, unfortunately. I do like this 8-speed automatic. Apparently it has an 8-speed instead of the older 6-speed just because it has a little bit better packaging. It's a smaller unit. The pedals are super responsive, and when you let off the brake pedal at a stop, it'll inch forward like a dual clutch, just let its clutch out, which is kind of cool. So it's kind of tuned to feel like a dual clutch unit. Otherwise, though, it's pretty smooth. It does a really nice job rev matching and giving you the upshifts you need. Puts its power down awesome, and it makes really good shift decisions. It utilizes the torque from this motor. Let's take it out of GP mode and let it settle down just a bit. This isn't an uncomfortable cruiser. It gets pretty good fuel economy. No matter how you drive, this will usually average around 30 miles to the gallon. On the highway, you could probably eke out 35 or 37 or so. But you're going to be getting into boost so much with this car that you're probably not going to do that well with it. There is a little bit of a drone from the exhaust, but it's not terrible. It's just kind of a tone in the background. There's quite a bit of tire noise from these high performance tires, but otherwise, besides the fact that there aren't really many creature comforts in here for 45 grand, it's actually an okay car to cruise around in and get on the highway. No bumps are really painful to hit. There's no point this week when I've hit something and I've really like grimaced and been in pain. It's just it's an active driving experience, and there's a lot of body motion. The mechanical grip here is amazing. This thing pulls speeds around entrance ramps that other high performance cars could just hope to do. When the tires are warm, when the conditions are right, this thing will out-handle just about anything, I think, if you can keep it on the road. I'm really curious to see what it'll do on the racetrack this week. I think that's really going to be its home turf. On the street, this is a hot hatch that you could daily drive. It's got some character. The steering and kind of the interaction of this car is a little bit disappointing with the completely numb steering and the automatic. I would like a proper manual, but that said, with this much power, maybe an automatic isn't a bad choice. And there's got to be some people out there who want a super fast front-wheel drive car with an automatic transmission, because most of the hot hatches out there are manual only. Civic Type R, Focus RS, STI, stuff like that. Your options are kind of limited. 45 grand, it's a steep price, but you know what? JCWs have always been 45 grand. You factor in inflation, and you're probably getting about what you paid for. No radar guided cruise control, but it does have a really pretty nifty system where you can limit your top speed, but also switch the settings quite easily. A double press for 5 mile an hour increments, a single press for 1 mile an hour. All the ergonomics in this are simple. This is definitely a car that's focused on the driving experience. There's not a lot to distract you. No Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Your gauge cluster, all your information is right in front of you. There's not a ton of configurability. You can switch between your coolant temperature, your miles per gallon, your trip meter, and that's about it. Fast though. It's kind of like the Civic Type R in the sense that it's almost too fast for the street. It really creeps up on you. Gotta chew through front tires like nobody's business. Oh man. I do like how simple the drive modes are though. Wicked fast, you guys. Wicked fast. This thing is a hoot. It's definitely a car with some personality, though it leaves me a little bit numb from a feedback and a feel standpoint. That said, it's fun. It's cool. It's a little bit of a laugh. they're only making 3,000 of these things, so you get a little bit of that limited edition specialness out of this car where, okay, it's not just your standard mass production vehicle. So there is something to be said about that. And, you know, there's probably some hardcore Mini buyers out there who would really, really love to own this thing. And the more I drive it, the more I enjoy it, the more I kind of get an idea for, hey, you know, this is just a wild, crazy front-wheel drive hot hatch that it has some flaws, but you know what? If it were perfect, it'd probably be boring. And this is definitely not a boring car to drive. You can't take it through automatic car washes, not that you should in a car like this. There's the spoiler, there's the carbon fiber fender pieces, and they'll all just get ripped off. I will say that this is a pretty stable car from a handling standpoint. Many JCWs have a history of having a lot of lift-off oversteer, and this is actually quite controllable, which is nice. It's a neutral handling experience. It's quite predictable. There's just no steering feel. But there is quite a bit of communication through the chassis, and that lets you know how much grip you have at the front wheels. It's a lot. It's more than you can explore on the street. I think the real test will be how this thing manages heat at the racetrack. I'm very curious to see how it does out there this week. Stay tuned for that video, and yeah, it definitely will be an interesting experience out on track with this thing. Let's do one more launch control here. Now that we've got some heat in the tires, that was a lot better. I look behind me and I just see 2 patches of rubber. This thing is kind of like the front-wheel drive Hellcat. Wherever you go, it's always spinning the tires. But the traction control and the systems manage it really well. And between the front diff and the traction control systems and the torque vectoring and everything, it does a really nice job putting its power down. It does such a good job that just you're speeding everywhere, which is kind of how this car is. The sound system, it's terrible. We're not even going to bother. Again, I mean, you know, this is about saving weight. It's about the driving experience. This is not a luxury hot hatch. It does put a smile on your face, though. Guys, well, that's going to wrap up the Mini Cooper JCW GP. Fun little car. Definitely not without its faults. But, yeah, not many compromises made here, despite how hardcore it is. So, which is nice. I think it's good that Mini has kind of found a little bit of a blend with their most hardcore product. I mean, it's so hardcore, it doesn't even have a rear wiper. I'm sure that's in the name of weight savings. The exhaust ticking when you turn it off is probably my favorite part. No proximity key, just you gotta take it out, push the button. You know me, I love a good new old car, and this is definitely that. Alright guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Catch us in a couple days out on the track with this thing. We'll see how it goes.